Now is South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, why if the Democratic Party had this in July, why did they hold it? I agree with Senator Collins. I thought she was very smart in her comment. It's not fair to anybody here.
Right. Well, here's what I would say. If I believed the person in front of me had committed a serious offense that would disqualify them from being on the Supreme Court, I would bring it up to them. I would not let that go unchallenged. So here's what I'm going to do. This is not that complicated. It's a 36-year-old allegation. It's a serious allegation. Everybody needs to be heard, but also people need to defend themselves. I'm going to look at what she said about Brett Kavanaugh in high school and compare that to everything else I know about Brett Kavanaugh, including his denial, and I'll make a decision. And here's what I want your audience to know. If Ms. Ford really did not want to come forward, never intended to come forward, never planned to come forward, why did she pay for a polygraph in August, and why did she hire a lawyer in August if she never intended to do what she's doing?
Nobody else has made that point, Senator. It's a poignant point and an interesting question.
And who paid for it?
Has she agreed to be interviewed or go before the Senate committee?
I don't know.
I'm sorry?
She's welcome to come. We're going to have a hearing Monday. She can come if she likes. If she doesn't want to, she doesn't have to. Kavanaugh can come if he would like. I think he will. We're going to vote on Wednesday. All I can say is that I've been a prosecutor, a judge, and a defense counsel all of my life before I got into politics. This case could not go before a criminal court because it's too old. No lawyer would bring it as a civil suit because it's just too hard to prove. The question for the Senate, is there really enough evidence here, given the nature of the allegation, how old it is, and the uncertain nature of it, to deny this man who's lived an incredible life a promotion to the Supreme Court? And if it was this bad, why did not the Democrats challenge Judge Kavanaugh when he was sitting right there in front of them?
What is your speculation? Well, what's the answer to that? Why didn't they bring it forward?
I think it's part of a pattern. They can't beat him on the law, so they're trying to destroy his life. If a conservative had edited a tape of a liberal nominee to the court where you take their words and turn them upside down, they tried to suggest that Judge Kavanaugh used the word or term abortion-inducing drugs when it was the plaintiff, the priest for life. Remember what Kamala Harris did to Judge Kavanaugh? Tried to put words in his mouth. Remember what they tried to say, that he had some knowledge of stolen documents when he did not? So there's been a pattern by Democrats on this committee to take his words out of context, to try to accuse him of things he had nothing to do with. And the last straw here is this allegation that came about last Thursday. And again, why didn't they act on it before?
The president made a decision tonight on redacting information, FISA, right, 302s, other information. But we also learned about the FBI, DOJ, other intelligence officials at the highest level leaking information to the media, and Lisa Page saying they didn't have any evidence. Did they leak to get the special counsel like Comey admitted he did?
All I can say, this is the most corrupt thing I've ever seen in my life. If the shoe were on the other foot, if the FBI agent liked Trump and hated Clinton and they got a dossier paid for by the Republican Party, it'd be front page news everywhere. I'm glad the president let this information out to the public to show how corrupt it was. As to Kavanaugh, he's going to get his day in court, as well as Ms. Ford, and I'm going to look at everything in Judge Kavanaugh's life, not just this one accusation.
You and I agree.
And I feel good about it.
Let everybody testify. Everybody that he's known all throughout his career. And let the professor testify and let the judge testify. I think the American people are fair. Thank you, Senator. Now with reaction is President Trump's attorney, Jay Sekulow. Full disclosure, he has done work for me, legal work in the past. So I think Lindsey Graham actually had the right approach. I think the president had the right approach. All right, if there's going to be a slight delay, I want everybody to be certain. The American people have a right to understand. The person that Professor Ford describes in the room has denied it. Then we have law clerks. Then we have 65 people that knew him at the time. Then we have other students in high school and in college and in law school and law clerks and people that worked with him in the Bush administration. And all the time he has been a judge, there's not one other person that only says glowing things about him, including his former girlfriends at the time.
Well, look, Sean, I mean, Judge Kavanaugh has stated that he will testify before the Senate. He said he would be willing to do it tomorrow. Dr. Ford has been offered the opportunity to appear as well. I think what Lindsey Graham said says it all. You evaluate the situation, and there'll be a vote. And look, I mean, no one can question whether Judge Kavanaugh has the intellect to serve on the Supreme Court of the United States. And if you're looking at judicial philosophy, he has over 300 published opinions. So I think from that standpoint, but you've got to look at this. Look, in this day and time, and I understand this, an allegation's been made. Judge Kavanaugh is going to respond. That's the appropriate way. The accuser is going to have her time as well, and it should be an orderly and appropriate process. I think what the president said is right. I think what Senator Graham has said is correct.
But I think when you look at the history, this is why I think Americans, I believe in the presumption of innocence. I want everybody to testify, including Professor Ford. But if you look at the history of Robert Bork and then Clarence Thomas, I think it gives people more reason to pause. And I don't think nobody was there. Nobody knows. What if it's only resolved that this woman makes this allegation, the person that was supposedly also in the room says no, the judge says no, there's nothing else in his career that marks a blemish on his character. He was a perfect gentleman is the words that so many people use that even dated him. Yep. What then happens?
That's why the Constitution, Sean, that's why the Constitution has this process. The president nominates, and it's with the advice and consent of the Senate that a nominee is confirmed or not confirmed to the position. So what Senator Graham said and what Senator Grassley has stated is they're going to go through a process pursuant to the Constitution. That's the appropriate way to respond to this.
And Senator Dianne Feinstein, who held the letter apparently since July, just issuing a statement. She says, I'm disappointed. The FBI and White House are failing to take even the most basic steps to investigate this matter. So will Professor Ford participate Monday? Will Judge Kavanaugh be simply delayed or completely derailed? Let's bring in senior fellow at the Center for American Progress, Ian Millhiser, and chief counsel for the Judicial Crisis Network, Carrie Severino. Welcome to both of you tonight. Good to have you with us.
Good to be here.
Okay, so you've heard a lot about these demands by the Democrats that the FBI perform an investigation. This is what they've told us in part. A DOJ spokesperson says the FBI does not make any judgment about the credibility or significance of any allegations. The allegation does not involve any potential federal crime. The FBI's role in such matters is to provide information for the use of the decision makers. So, Ian, they've said, we've given this to the White House. We've made it part of the file. That's all we would do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, all that they're saying here, I mean, rape or attempted rape would be a state crime. And so that's just not within the FBI's jurisdiction. And, you know, the job of confirming a potential Supreme Court justice is within the Senate's jurisdiction. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a hearing on Monday. There have been credible allegations, and it's going to be up to the senators to weigh, you know, who they think is telling the truth. And, you know, ultimately the Senate's just going to have to decide this because, you know, the FBI is indeed limited in the fact that rape is just not something within its jurisdiction.
Is there going to be anything about this hearing? We don't know if Dr. Ford is going to come tonight or not. The Senate Judiciary Committee says they're having the hearing. Whoever shows up is going to be under oath. We're going to proceed whether it's both of them or just the nominee who said he's ready for this. But will there be any way in which Judge Kavanaugh can fully clear himself or satisfy? Will either side ever be satisfied? Because it's, you know, he said, she said about something 36 years ago. Does either side ever end up fully vindicated in this?
Well, these are claims that are very difficult to substantiate, especially when many of the key details are ones that she doesn't even say she remembers herself. So these allegations, you can't say, well, I wasn't at this party at this day in 1982, because she doesn't know what day it happened. She doesn't know where it happened. I think what we're going to have is an opportunity for both sides to be heard, to tell their story. Judge Kavanaugh says he's looking forward to being able to refute the allegations, and you'll have opportunity for both sides to ask questions, and then it's going to come down to a judgment of the credibility of each of these individuals. But I do think that when you have a situation like this, he said, she said, you also do have to take into account the character witnesses, and we've seen a lot of that going through this whole process. Everyone that was talking about Judge Kavanaugh's sterling reputation, you have the ABA saying in integrity, he doesn't just get an A+, it's an A++. And now we have 65 women who knew him since high school and since then as well, and have, including several women who were dating him and one who was dating him at the time that these allegations took place. They say this is not at all the kind of person we know in Judge Kavanaugh. He always treated us with decency and respect. And so, you know, as where people are trying to gauge this, this is going to be the senator's job, is to determine, Is this so out of odds, at odds with what we know of Judge Kavanaugh? How do we make that call?
Well, and we've heard, obviously, the plan set by the Senate Judiciary Committee Chair, Chuck Grassley. I mean, he chairs this. He's obviously a Republican. We're not hearing a lot tonight from the Democrats about whether they're going to show up, whether they're encouraging Dr. Ford to show up or not. Senator Cornyn says this: if Democrats reject the committee handling this swiftly and in a bipartisan way through regular order, then it's clear that their only intention is to smear Judge Kavanaugh and derail his nomination, Ian.
Well, let's see what happens. Her attorney says that she does intend to testify. And I will say one thing, to your point about, he said, she said is hard. But what we're talking about here, when you strip away the pageantry and you strip away the fancy job titles that everyone has who's doing it, is you have a job interview. And if I was hiring an intern and there was this serious an allegation against a potential intern, I would hire a different intern. And so I think when you have this serious of an allegation against a potential Supreme Court justice, what you don't want to do, they're not held, this isn't like a criminal trial where they're held to a beyond the reasonable doubt standard. You want to be pretty darn sure that they didn't do it. Because, again, it's a job interview. And
how can he, 36 years later, prove himself when she doesn't even know where and when this happened? And listen, everybody processes trauma differently if this indeed happened to her, but she doesn't give him a lot to work with as far as defending himself.
Right. I mean, it is difficult to know what happened here. And I guess at a certain point you have to say, if you are not sure that he did not do it, there are plenty of other qualified people who can do the job. There are plenty of other qualified conservative people
who can do the job. Okay, I want to read something here. David Harsanjani, writing in The Federalist, if Republicans bring up the fact that Ford's allegation wasn't reported or relayed to anyone for more than 30 years until Kavanaugh's name emerged as a possible Supreme Court justice, they'll be accused of attacking a woman. If they point out that her therapist notes, the one that Ford claims prove her charge, in some ways contradict what she's now saying, they'll be portrayed as a bunch of men attacking a sexual assault survivor. He goes on to say, this woman will be treated like Anita Hill and not like Juanita Broaddrick.
Well, I think one interesting point about it is this is not supposed to be guilty until proven innocent. That's essentially what many people are asking, and I think it's also being treated as a let's just continue to use this as a source for delay. Because I think it's the Democrats here who are asking for investigations. Yes, they are not giving him the opportunity to make a case at the same time as they're assuming everything that she says naturally follows. But I think it's also, look at the context. Look at Senator Feinstein, who chose not to act on these. If she thought this was credible and serious, why didn't she ask him in private? Why didn't she ask him all these times? Why did they all wait until this last moment? The timing of this was perfectly timed to block investigation.
And there are a lot of folks on the left who think she's done a disservice to the accuser because of this, because it immediately raises red flags for a lot of people. Ian and Carrie, thank you very much. We'll be watching this next Monday.